Welcome to Take It from the Iron Woman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Iron Woman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Iron Woman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take it from the Iron Woman. We only have special guests, and today we talk to Alice Jin, and she was brought to Malia. Listen to Malia's story because it's amazing. But today we talk HR. So Alice Jin is the founder and CEO of Your Other Half, an HR consultancy that helps entrepreneurs build teams they love. This is an important word. Without the legal landmines, leadership headaches, or overwhelm. Alice, tell us, how did that all start and where are the landmines that you help other people to work on?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me, Suzanne. I'm so thrilled to be here. My journey with HR actually started when I was a child, and I didn't anticipate that that would be what the start was. But I was lucky to be the child of two entrepreneurs. My dad had a small chain of Chinese restaurants in northern New Jersey, and my mother started a business called EduLink for Children, which was a computer business teaching preschoolers computers in the late 1980s and early 1990s. I love to think of her as a founder right on the front edge of thinking about computers for kids. And then she later owned a franchise. She was a franchisee of the Kumon Company, which is a math and reading center for children. And so for me, entrepreneurship just started by working in my parents' businesses. They both owned businesses. They were always busy. I joke, but it's true. It took me until I was 11 or 12 to figure out that working in the tutoring business was easier than working at the restaurant. It took me a little too long to figure that out. But what I got to see was really the front line of entrepreneurship. So both my parents loved their work. They both had really wonderful teams. They both worked with a lot of young people. So they had teenagers and college students working for them. And as a young person, I looked up to all those folks, which was really interesting. But what I saw with my parents was occasionally someone would quit or occasionally there'd be an issue with somebody and they just really didn't have help. It was in the late 80s and early 90s when my parents were running their businesses. There wasn't necessarily a resource for them, right? There were huge companies that had lots of resources, but there wasn't really yet a culture of fractional profession. There wasn't really a culture yet of services that you could provide that would work remotely with a small business. And so they were just often trying to figure it out as best they could, talking to other business owners, trying to do what they felt was the right thing for people. But they just really didn't have a resource. And so I kind of observed that, but I didn't know that there was something possible that was different because my parents were small business owners, right? I didn't really know anybody who worked in large corporations. And so then I went to college, and one summer I just went to a temp agency to get a placement, and they placed me at a huge law firm in New York City doing a maternity leave replacement for an HR assistant in a large law firm. I went to this job. I had no idea what to expect, but I was young and I was eager and I was happy to be there. They put me in charge of basically all the fun stuff that HR does, right? So because I was young and I was only temporary, I got to do, for instance, the gym membership program, and I got to organize new associate lunches to welcome people. And I got to put together like little cute welcome baskets to put on new hires' desks. It was so funny, but my experience of HR that summer was that everyone loves you and it's like the most fun job you can have in the entire world. Your job was really just to show up and help people and take care of them, right? I just completely fell in love with it. The oldest child in my family, I'm the oldest grandchild in my family. I for sure have that kind of taking care of people gene. That's just a natural part of who I am. For me, to find a job that was really, to some degree, about taking care of folks within a business felt like a really natural fit. I went back to college and I started kind of studying HR, and I continued to pursue internships in HR throughout the remainder of my college career. and just really found that I loved the field. And the more I got into it, I also found that there was a real technical piece to it, which I found fascinating, right? I'm one of those people who loves to solve puzzles or understand complexities and help people find a way through something that feels really challenging. And so that part of HR also really appealed to me.
Mm.
So,
HR should be the way, like organizing gym and luncheons, and this is the fun part. That's
yeah.
what we want. We want to paint that picture that all people should go into HR. I love that. It's nice that you had a great experience as an intern, because sometimes you just do the busy work. That's a great testimonial to the company who put you in charge of the fun stuff. Yeah.
And they were extraordinary, and the thing that's so amazing is I'm still in touch with both my bosses from that
Ah,
business.
no,
They've been real advocates for me in building my business. Anyone who's out there thinking about having an intern, if you build those relationships and you give someone a real opportunity, you can completely change their life, and I'm a huge, huge advocate of that.
I couldn't agree more with you. So now you have your own business. What are you taking from the restaurant or the tutoring business into your business?
Oh, that's such a great question. So my dad was absolutely a visionary business owner. He was a person who was always thinking about what was next, what was bigger, and he loved reading about new technologies and he loved seeing how other businesses worked. So when I think about my childhood, whenever he had a day off, he'd load me and my brothers into the car. I grew up in northern New Jersey and he'd drive us into Manhattan and he would just take us to all these different restaurants all day and we would walk in and he would always wanna look at what the layout was of the restaurant, right? What the line structure was. What did the signage and the menus look like? How are they presenting the food on a plate or in a display case? And so there was this extraordinary attention to detail that he taught me to kind of understand that it's not just about the product that you create, but it's also about the presentation or the experience of it. And that's something that absolutely has come into my business. I like to talk to my team a lot about the fact that, yes, we provide HR services, but the experience that our client has with us, we want them to feel like they are valued, that they're cared for here, that we're here to help them, right? We're never here to judge them or make their life more difficult. Sometimes the law will do that, but our goal is to
Yeah.
help them through that and to hopefully make it a little easier. My dad really kind of taught me that experience. And then the other thing that my father said over and over in his business always was that the customer is always right. That kind of immediate customer service view of really being in business to serve the people who your business is working for is something that I carry with me every day. My mother taught me about two things. So she was really good at setting up routines and structures within her business so that things were repeatable. She worked with a lot of teenagers who would kind of come in to be tutors for younger students or to grade papers. And she really learned very quickly that being organized and having work prepared for everybody and having things so that people could come in and feel successful. And even though she wasn't setting me up to run an HR business, but it's such a critical part of HR, both in terms of me running my own business, but also me and my team helping our clients run their businesses, is understanding that you have to set the table so that people can be successful. And if you don't set the table correctly, people don't know what to eat, right? When they come in, you have to kind of be in that vein. That was one thing she taught me. The other thing my mother taught me was that sometimes the thing that is most important is to have is to be a human with other people. I remember this one time I was 16, I was working in my mom's business. It was after school tutoring, so we were usually there from 3 to 7 PM. I would always take the school bus to where her business was. I would just get on a different bus than my regular bus, and then we would drive home together. And so that night, I remember I really wanted to get home because the Gilmore Girls was on, and I loved the Gilmore Girls, and I wanted to be home for the show at 8 o'clock. There were 2 kids whose parents didn't come to pick them up at 7 o'clock. I went into the other room and I started complaining to my mom, "I'm gonna miss my TV show. This isn't fair. We should just get to leave. I don't know why we're waiting here." And I remember she said to me, "Alice, these kids know that their parents were supposed to be here to pick them up. They know that all the other kids are gone. They're really scared right now. They don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. Their parents haven't called." She goes, "But the thing that they absolutely don't need is you complaining about Gilmore Girls. They need somebody to distract them. So I want you to go in the other room. I want you to play a game with them. And we're going to stay here until their parents come to get them. We're going to take care of these kids." I remember I was mad at the moment, but I followed her direction. But there's absolutely nothing my parents taught me that about more than that moment where she really understood so fundamentally that our job in that moment was no longer to run the business we were running, but to be the people that we wanted to be and to care for others in a way that would help them to feel hopefully supported, hopefully cared for, hopefully safe in a moment that was challenging for them. It did resolve that night. The parents did show up about an hour later, and they had one of their parents, the kid's grandmother, had a medical emergency. My mother was right. It was a tough night for them, and they needed that help. I think about that a lot because sometimes in HR, you get on a phone call and you're dealing with an employer who's furious. They just found out that an employee did something really wrong, or you get on the phone with someone and they find out they were just diagnosed with cancer or there's been a death in their family. And that's the thing that I hope my team and I do every time is show up with that human compassion and show up as a person first and really are able to be with people first and then to help them through it in the way that we can.
What a wonderful story. When you think about business, it's about taking care of your clients, taking care of your employees. And that also sets you up for success because the people remember that story and they say, Alice, I know you take care of us. We want to do business with you because they trust. It's about building that trust and not only the trust for today, but for a longer term.
And you're completely right. The thing is, if you show up for people consistently, you demonstrate that whether they're in a tough moment or a celebration moment, you're there for them always. It just builds a long relationship and something that you can always be proud of. Like, it's such a privilege to be able to do that every day.
And you talk about your team. How big is your team?
They're amazing. So I have a team of 15 folks who work for me. What's interesting is we're a remote first culture. So our team is all over the country, all over the world in some cases, and we work really well and closely together. But what we have found is that when building a remote culture, it's really critical to be intentional about time together. It's really intentional to be what are kind of the practices and policies and things we have in place, but also to be really thoughtful about what does celebration look like? How do we make sure that some of those moments that might happen for people in an office kind of off the cuff or naturally because people can see what each other are doing or what meetings each other are having or things like that. We build systems so that we do that regularly. And so that's been a really fun and interesting part of the work of building my team and then also being able to take those learnings and share them with our clients. So it's a complete joy. I'm really proud of all of them.
Yeah, wow, 15 is a lot. And are they fractional or are they full-time employees?
Yeah, so our team is generally built of full-time employees. We have one or two people on our team who are part-time, but the goal is really that folks are focused on working for us and focused on supporting our clients. And we find that having a consistent resource, even if it's a fractional resource, is really critical for our clients. That's how we've built our team. It's interesting because we've met a lot of other HR businesses that work in a much more kind of 1099 fractional model. For us, it's allowed us to build an internal culture that then feeds through to the client culture that we want to have. That's something that's been a real success for us.
Let's talk about the client. So, who is the client that comes to you? Is it small business, medium, or bigger clients?
Yeah, so we focus exclusively on small businesses, and that goes back to kind of my experience with my parents. I felt like it was really an underserved market. And so we primarily work with companies with 5 to 50 employees. About 90% of our clients are in that space. We'll work all the way up to 100 employees. Most of them are quite small businesses, and they usually have been in operation, I would say, anywhere from 3 to some of our clients start with us when they've been around for 20 years. But what we usually find is that they're at one of 3 inflection points, right? They're ready to grow. They need more systems and more structure in place. Sometimes they're having to downsize because the world is changing and the business is changing, and they're trying to figure out how to work together. Or they've kind of hit maybe an HR inflection point. And so what those usually look like are either someone on their team is experiencing something that they don't know how to address. That might be something like a leave of absence or a benefits question, or could be something like a death of a parent or a death of a child, and they don't know necessarily how to help someone through that. Or it might be governmental, honestly. And that's the thing that happens to us a lot of the time where someone gets an audit from the government or there's a new insurance program that's coming into place and they're just like, I have no idea how to deal with this. I need help. We love working with people at any of those points.
And now my question, obviously I come also from HR, but HR today and HR in the future and AI,
Yeah, there's a few different pieces and ways that we have really worked with our business and our clients on it. I think one of the things that's a little bit of a misconception sometimes with small businesses is that they're like, I just don't want to work with AI and I don't have to work with AI. To some degree, that is true from the perspective of you don't have to necessarily adopt new tools. But I think that AI is being integrated into almost every tool that most small business owners use. People will say, well, I don't use any AI. And I'll say, okay, well, do you have Google Suite? And they'll say, yes. And I'll say, cool. Does it recommend what to write in an email back to somebody? And they go, oh yeah, it always does that. I'm like, that's AI. Some of it is just educating people like what actually AI is, because it's been painted in a lot of frames as kind of a boogeyman that people don't understand what it is or how it's working with them. So some of it is that education piece. The other thing is really helping business owners to understand where it has the opportunity to give them more. A lot of times that's giving time back. A lot of times that's automating things that previously have had to be done in a very manual way in a business. It's helping them to understand that it can make certain processes or certain parts easier. We had a consultation with a client where I went on site with them in October, and we were talking about their business development process and how, because they've been in business for over 20 years, where they could build an AI where they gave it all the information from 20 years of proposals and then ask it to generate a first draft of a proposal. That's one of the things that I work with my clients on a lot is the idea of AI should be a tool that you use to help you do a first draft. And then we want a human to look at it. We don't want it just to be like AI takes over everything, because I think that misses a lot of that human connection moment, the little details that make somebody feel really cared for, the example that someone shared on a call that you want to integrate. But what it can do is take that manual process of, okay, we have to take the notes, we have to then clean up the notes, we have to turn it into a proposal, and really reduce the time. With this client, we were able to help them take their proposal process and turn it from an 8 to 10 hour process into a 2 hour process. The number of proposals they were able to do increased significantly because they already had staff in place. That's really what we look at is how can we help humans leverage technology in order to drive a more efficient business, which will allow the business either to go after more business or perhaps to create a kind of work-life balance that they maybe previously haven't had for themselves and their team. And so that to me, it's a really exciting time that we have these tools that can help people with that. It's extraordinary.
What about the recruitment? A lot of people say, oh, AI is reading through my resumes and nobody looks at them anymore. What is your thought on that?
It has been true for probably about 5 years at least, maybe even longer, that software was looking at your resume more than people were. Prior to it being kind of a formal AI, applicant tracking systems were doing a lot of that work. It is still critical because we're leveraging these tools for folks to have a keyword section on their resume, because often that's the thing that's knocking people in or knocking people out. So I would really encourage people to think about any keyword that might be relative to a job. And if you're applying to a job that you're super excited about, you can actually just pull up the job description and look for the keywords and then make sure those are added to your resume, either in kind of your bullet point examples, or you can add an additional skill section at the end and just list those words. That's a way to get around some of these tools being the primary screener. But I would also encourage everybody to really work their network. That's the biggest opportunity to kind of change your success rate in recruiting. Most companies have a policy in place that if there's an internal referral, meaning somebody in the company refers that person, that someone in HR has to look at it. They actually have to look at the resume. It's like not negotiable. More than anything, it's a still critically important piece to have a network, to be willing to ask people to make introductions for you or to connect you to someone in a company, and then to see if you can get that referral in, because that's likely going to get you the highest chance that you'll be looked at. The other piece of advice that I give a lot to job searchers is to make it a normal part of your everyday. I like to think about it kind of in the late morning, early afternoon for East Coast, which would be start of the day for West Coast in the United States. Because now that we have kind of one push application and things like LinkedIn and Indeed, people can apply for hundreds of jobs a day. And as a result, recruiters and their teams are looking at thousands and thousands of resumes. And so I think it's really critical to try to get into that first 300 to 500 applications, because the likelihood of you getting reviewed is just so much higher if you're doing direct application. I encourage job searchers, instead of it being like, I'm going to do this one day a week on Friday, being like, hey, I'm going to set 10 to noon aside every day and just work on it for 2 hours every day. So the longest it will have been since a job is posted would be 24 hours, and you're kind of always in that first day. Those would be my tips if you're looking right now.
Oh, these are great wisdoms for people who are looking for jobs. What do you do to rejuvenate and recharge your batteries?
Oh, great question. So my husband and I love to go for walks in nature. I like to say I'm a New Yorker who lives in Pennsylvania is kind of how I think of myself. I lived here for 30 years and I've lived in Pennsylvania for the last 10. But what's great about where we live is we live in the mountains and there's a lot of gorgeous nature. And so we try to do a mile every day and then on weekends do 3 miles in nature. And we just find that it's a great time to like be in nature to kind of decompress from work, but also to get reconnected to each other. And so we really love that time. I will say this time of my rule is it's got to be above 0 degrees to go for a walk. So there've been some days recently where we haven't gone for our walk. But if it's above 0 degrees, I will go every day. That's been really wonderful. And then it's really about those routines that help you to rejuvenate every day. For me, that's getting a good night's sleep. That's making sure that I eat vegetables every day. That's making sure that I have time to exercise every day, whether it's that walk with my husband or yoga or strength training. I try to get between 45 minutes and an hour of exercise in every day. And then I really like to journal. I think just giving myself 5 or 10 minutes to kind of get my thoughts in order, to kind of work through something that I'm working on. There's something magic that happens when pen goes to paper that's different than just being in your head. Spending 5 to 10 minutes a day doing that is really important for me too. And then I would say the other thing for me is making sure that I have time to connect with people that's not about work. Because so much of my job is talking to humans. That's a privilege of the work that I do. But also making sure I have time as a human to connect with other humans instead of as an HR professional to connect with other humans is important. And so I try to talk to at least one friend a week or have lunch with at least one friend a week. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. That sounds wonderful. And we already connected for Innovation in Action, where you're going to be guest lecturer for us or just a guest, just telling us your story. So thank you so much for the great wisdom. And wish you good luck for all the business development that you're doing in New York.
Thank you, Suzanne. It was such a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate you. Take good care.
Thank you. What are you taking away from this engaging conversation? What is HR to you? How can it be fun? It's about the gym membership and also the lunches. Let's make it like that. Take it from the Ein Woman. We have episodes every Monday. Come and join us, learn with others, learn from others, and also ask questions. We're here to answer all your questions. And Get Fit in 2026 is the new program. Get mentally fit in 2026. Put the running shoes on for leadership. Talk to me and we'll get you up to speed. We're less than 1,000 days away to the LA Olympics. And Take It from the Iron Woman is also the book, Global Business Coaching with Sports Parallels. Download it or get it in your local bookstore. Support local businesses and support us on the platform you're listening to this podcast to today. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much and bye-bye.